What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bible Fun with the Duns. Today we're studying 2 John. Let's get started.
Okay, so whenever we're reading John, we understand that the guy John, who wrote the Gospel of John, like John 3:16, not John Donne, but another John, he wrote a few books of the Bible. He wrote the Gospel of John, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, and then he wrote the book of Revelation. And he's the oldest living of all the other disciples. As a matter of fact, this is the only disciple who died without being murdered. Now, it wasn't for lack of trying, though. So when John was old, they threw him on an island prison so that he would die there. Like he would starve, he would get diseased, he would die. The lifespan at the Isle of Patmos was not long, but John lived. They took a giant bowl, metal bowl full of oil, lit a fire under it, and like you would fry fish or you would fry French fries in it. They got it that hot, scalding hot, and they threw him in it. And like that would fry him alive. Guess what? He got out fine. They tried to poison him. They tried to beat him. They tried to do, and like John still keeps living. Why? Because John was a follower of Jesus, and Jesus determined that John would live. Now the others would die. Peter even asked about this. Peter said, well, Lord, what about him? When is he going to die? And Jesus said, he said, mind your own business, Peter. He said, if it's up to me, if I want him to live till I come back, that's between me and him. Now, that's not what happened. He said, if I wanted to. And so what's just saying is, we each have our own time, and the world doesn't determine the time. God determines the time. Now, this is an important letter because it says the elder. Now, why does it say elder? Because John is their pastor. That's what the word means. But also, John is an aging disciple. He's the last of the living apostles by this point. And he writes the letter to the elect lady and her children. Now, some people read this and they say, John writes this to a mom who has a bunch of kids, and he's trying to like tell them about serving the Lord. But I think that's a little bit shallow. So think about it like this: what if this is code language for something we already understand? What if the lady is the symbol for the bride of Jesus? Who is the bride of Jesus? Us, the church. And when it says to the elect lady, he's talking about the church. And it says, and her children, well, who are the individual children? It's the individual members of that church. And so he's writing to them, and he says this. He says, I rejoice greatly, because I found that some of your children are walking in the truth as we have received commandment from the Father. So he's really concerned with the word truth in this book. He uses it 4 times, and truth means the reality of something, not just the appearance of something, but the realness of it. And what he's saying is, I keep hearing about you people. And you people are really living for Jesus. You're not just talking about Jesus, you're living for Jesus. They are living in the truth. Now, what's exciting about this is that in verse number 9, he says, whosoever transgresses and does not abide in the doctrine of Christ. So he's talking about obeying the commands of Jesus, which is interesting because you can't be close with Christ without also being close to the teachings of Jesus. Because what Jesus said is, he who has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and will manifest myself to him. He said that in the Gospel of John. So all this is saying is that people who really love Jesus are those who obey Jesus. Jesus' love language is obedience. John, what was your takeaway from this book?
All right, so my takeaway, it comes from verse 6, and it says, this is love, that we walk according to his commands. This is the command that you have heard from the beginning, that you walk in love. So, this verse, for someone to love, that's like a feeling. But for someone to walk, that's a verb, and you actually do walk. And so when he says to walk, he wants us to walk in love. He wants us to always constantly show love and to everybody. And yeah.
You're right on the back. You're right on the money, John. So love is a feeling, but walking is a verb. I like how you said that. And if we really love, it makes us want to do something. Matter of fact, an old writer said what you said. He said, our faith must be proved by what we do. and our love must be expressed by our deeds and not just our words. Now, John is going to go even a little further in this. He's going to tell us something that it sounds really weird. Did you think it was odd when you read verse 10? He says, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this doctrine, do not receive him into your house nor greet him. Did you catch that? You go, if somebody doesn't believe the gospel, or if they have a different version of it than I do, I can't even let them in my house. Is that what that's saying? Well, maybe. I want you to remember this, though. The early believers didn't have churches the way we have churches today. So where did the church meet on Sundays, and where did the church worship? Well, they originally found one of the members, and they went to the biggest house they could find of the membership. Maybe they even moved around to all of their houses. Their houses were their churches because that's the only place that they had. So notice what John is saying. Remember, because he's talking about the truth in this thing. He says, if you spot lies and it's not the truth, don't let them into your house. And maybe what he's saying is, don't give them a platform in your life. Don't give them a place where they can stand and tell lies to people who may not know better and influence them the wrong way. He said, guard your house, guard your heart, guard your family, guard your church. All of this. You say, well, how do we know what the truth is? Well, the disciples asked Jesus that too. And he said, don't you know? He said, I am the way and the truth and the life. And no man comes to the Father but through me. So if it doesn't line up with Jesus, it ain't true. The other thing we find when we read through this is John's idea of fellowship. He said, I got a lot more to tell you. He said, but I don't want to write it down. Why? Because it's one thing to write, but face-to-face fellowship is always going to go so much further. And so when he's talking about love and expressing our love and showing our love, he's also saying this is something we do. We don't just feel it. John said, walking in love is a verb. He says something we do. He says, so let's show love to one another when we're face to face with one another. So who do you have in your life that you can show that you love them and be loving to them? And listen, not even just the people we like. But do you have somebody you don't really like that you need to pray about? How can I show God's love to them? That's what this is all about. All right. Hope you're enjoying. Let's wrap up this year's reading plan and be good and faithful as we do it. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.